Welcome to the Writer Talks. Hope your week went by well. Mine was exciting, for I got to meet and talk at length with the gentlemanly, charming, and the ever so patient Paul Jameson, all the way from UK. This author of the immensely popular novel published in 2018, the noir novel Nightjar, seems to epitomize eclectic interests. His interests range from psychology, Gothic, horror, Romans, Vikings, Celtic traditions, to having been a musician in his younger days and played in a band. And he has also built a shed in his garden from where he works for 4 to 5 hours, writing laboriously each day, every day. Besides this, Paul also is fascinated by birds and animals that are lesser known, such as the mudcocker, which also happens to be his Twitter handle, and the nightjar. Speaking of nightjar, did you know that this bird is considered to be particularly ugly? Well, as I listened to Paul describe the nightjar, I was reminded of Samuel Johnson's words about the metaphysical poetry, heterogeneous ideas yoked together by violence. Now, just like the metaphysical poetry which gained precedence and popularity in the 20th century, Paul's Nightjar is unique and distinct. The novel is liminal, encompasses adventure, intrigue, and is particularly captivating for its choice of diction and imagery. In fact, the novel opens with a poem that is bordering on the macabre, with extensive discussions on death, disease, and decay. But that's what makes it unique and also distinct. Now, while The Nightjar, published in 2018, is his first published novel, this is not his first novel. His first novel is the uniquely entitled 76 and the Odd 93, which, mind you, after the final edits has been 26 years in the making and clearly underscores Paul's persistence. The novel has autobiographical elements, and as Paul himself describes it, it is a rather disturbing read, owing to which he has chosen not to push it too much. However, both these published novels enjoy five-star rating, on Goodreads and are easily available on Amazon. Now, Paul is not merely a novelist, he's also a short story writer, and he tells me that his favorite short story is Magpie, which he has promised to read for us the next time round. In fact, in the 1990s, Paul came third in the Young Writer of the Year award in Western Australia. That is another unique thing about Paul. He was born in Africa and has spent his early years in Australia until he decided to move to UK in 2010. He now lives in Sandy with his wife and sons. It's a beautiful countryside, he tells me. And besides working on his craft for 4 to 5 hours every day, he is loath to taking long haul flights. Now, for such interesting and more insightful information about Paul's craft and his life, and also listening to him read from the Nightjar, let's dive into the second segment of the Writer Talks, where I am in conversation with Paul Jameson. But before that, please like, share, and subscribe. In fact, I'm once again appealing to each one of my subscribers. Please get one. Each one of you get one more so that I can continue to engage you in such interesting conversations from writers across the world. Also, do not forget to write in the comment section what you thought of this particular episode. So until next week, ahoy, enjoy the talk with Paul Jameson. Ahoy, welcome to the Writer Talks, Paul. Superb to have you. I'm so thrilled to see you in person. I mean, virtually in person. Right.
Sorry?
I said virtually in person. I am so delighted. I said I'm so thrilled to see you in person, but then I realized that we are actually looking at each other on Zoom. So virtually in person, of course. Right. So how's the weather in England?
It's freezing today. Very cold. Got my hat on, shirt, t-shirt. It's a freezing fog, so
My,
pretty chilly in the shed.
right.
This is where I write.
Yeah, so it's already a freezing point, is it? Right in the early December, it's already freezing. Right, right, right,
Getting ready for winter,
right,
Christmas.
right.
Yeah.
So Pfizer apparently is coming out with a vaccine, and UK will be getting the vaccine in about a few weeks. I was just reading that.
Fingers crossed. I hope so.
Right, right.
I'm at that age bracket where I need to get it.
I don't think you're that old. I don't think so at all. Even the Queen has to wait for a few weeks. That's what I was reading just some time ago.
I'm more important than the Queen.
So, what do you do on a Sunday? I mean, how does your Sunday pan out generally?
Sunday, same as most days, really. I work early in the morning as a cleaner. I was quite ill a few years ago,
Right.
so I'm not allowed to work, really. I'm only allowed to do 15 hours a day, 15 hours a week, sorry.
Okay.
So I work as a cleaner in the morning, then I get home, take the dogs for a walk, and then I retreat to my shed, which is in the garden, the end of the garden. And then I write. I do Twitter and write. I
That's
think a lot of
lovely.
us do Twitter.
Yeah, I read about read about that in your bio that you have your own shed in the garden to work in, and that sounds very exotic and very unique. So, did you build that by
Yeah,
yourself?
yeah. It's a little wooden shed. It's got insulation. I've got a heater going at the moment. Televisions, 2 computers.
Right,
So yeah, it's just a little wooden shack.
that's lovely. So you must be having a lovely view of the garden also
And
then.
I've got the black cat too. She's always in here.
Oh, so well, what's she called? I'm assuming it's a female.
Yeah, it's a she, but she's called Bilbo,
Interesting,
which is a bit strange.
interesting, interesting.
But that was my children who chose the name.
Right. So what part of the UK do you live in?
I live in Sandy, which is about 40 miles north of London,
Okay.
in Bedfordshire.
All
So
right.
it's a place of very green fields and farming land, ancient landscape.
Right.
It's where the Romans first came, and then we had lots of hill forts around here, Celtic hill forts and then Roman, and also the Vikings. This was part of the Dane Guild. So when the Vikings invaded England, this was like one of the This was on the frontier of the Viking and the Anglo-Saxon kingdom.
Okay. Okay.
So
So
it's nice.
sorry, go on.
Sorry, no, it's nice. It's quiet. Cambridge is only 20 minutes away, and that's a beautiful city. Wonderful. I mean, really pretty. And it's about half an hour south of a place called Peterborough, which is a very ancient city as well.
All right. That sounds very interesting. Is it how you got interested in the Celtic traditions? How different is the Celtic tradition from the English?
No, I've always been interested in that from a very young age. Just I loved history, so yeah, and I really love the fact that I'm probably Celtic, so yeah, or Celtic, however you say it. I say it with a hard K. And yeah, I've just always been interested in it, the myths, folklore, the history. Not that there's a lot, but not written. But we have all the sort of geographical history with the hill forts and the standing stones and a lot of things that people don't quite know what they are. So you're allowed that interpretation to make it what you want it to be.
Do you have any locals, some self-appointed guides who usually know certain tidbits about these exotic places. Do you have people like that around?
People, yeah, local people know. It's like anywhere, isn't it? They know the local history in the local area, and they're like little font of knowledge.
Right.
Probably easier to tap into now with social media and Facebook and
True.
Facebook groups. So there's a Sandy group and there's a wider group, and you can just ask a question and you get so many answers that you weren't expecting.
Right.
So that's where my little font of knowledge.
Sorry, I missed the last
If I
part.
need to talk to local people, social media.
Sorry, Paul, I missed the last part. Could you repeat that, please?
Just tapping into local people. I just use social media.
Right.
Unfortunately, saying our internet connection's unstable.
Yeah, sometimes it's almost like the internet has a life of its own. It just decides that, okay, I'm going off now for a break.
Very much so.
Right. So one of the most obvious questions, what got you interested in writing? How long have you been writing?
We broke up a bit at the end, but I think I caught the question of how I got into writing. I, I, for as long as I can remember, I wanted to write. There's never heard books. It's all I ever wanted to do. I did write occasionally, and I wrote short stories. And then I wrote a novel. I started in '93 and finished in last.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, good to go now again. So the most obvious question, how long have you,
Sorry?
what got you interested in writing? How long have you been writing?
Okay. Well, I've always wanted to write ever since I was as young as a little grasshopper. I'd always loved books. And I'd always dabbled with writing, the best way to put it. Then I wrote a few short stories, and then I wrote a novel, which was really for me, not for anyone else. And life took me another direction, so I didn't really start writing properly until I was in my early 40s, really. And I got very ill, and I used writing as a way to get healthy again. So when I started writing, I could only write a sentence a day. And it got up to maybe a paragraph a day. And so I tested my recovery that way. I still can't write a lot, but I can write 1,000 words a day, 500 to 1,000 words a day now. And that got me back into writing. And then I decided to try and share some of it, I suppose.
Right, right. So like many of us, writing for you is cathartic.
Cathartic and therapeutic, yeah. A bit of both.
Right.
You could always try.
Writing is cathartic, a little bit of both for you.
Yeah, definitely cathartic and therapeutic. And now it's all I really do, to be honest.
Right. Is there any
it's my
particular
main passion.
right? Is there any particular point of time or time of the day that you prefer to write? Do you work at a fixed time or whenever muse hits you?
No, I have a regular routine, a regular habit. I think writing, when you start pursuing it more professionally, you have to make a habit of it. It's like a muscle that you have to exercise. And if you exercise it, then it becomes easier.
Right.
But if you don't exercise it becomes harder very quickly. So personally, I write every day.
Okay.
I very rarely miss a day. And I start about 3 p.m. I'm in the shed. religiously. Sometimes earlier, sometimes very rarely later, but usually by 3 p.m. I'm in here. I let myself do Twitter for maybe an hour,
Okay.
which is part of writing, building up your base and keeping in touch with writers on the internet and that sort of thing. And then once I've done that, then I tend to write for about 4 or 5 hours.
Oh, wow, that's quite a long time. It's nice. And you manage to write every
Yeah,
day, you said. That's really fantastic.
every day, yeah.
Has there been any time when you've had this typical writer's block, or when you have written extensively and you do not like it and you have chucked it out?
Oh yeah, I've got 2 novels that I've not, of first edits, historical novels that I've not even looked at. So they're just they're just rough first edits. Um, and I've not gone back to them. I've just finished a piece in the vein of Nightjar, which was about 140,000 words long, and I put it on the shelf for now. Only because I'm not sure it's right. It's the only way I can describe it. It's I might have strayed too far into fantasy and too far away from reality.
Mm.
So I put that on the shelf as well. There's 3 works that I've got on the shelf that I will go back to. Well, certainly the last one. But I'm not scared of chucking them out either. If they don't fit my writing style or my writing persona, then I wouldn't publish them. They'll just be something that sit in a drawer forever. You know, if someone maybe to find one day, but not for me to pursue actively.
Right. So, is there a particular genre that that you think comes naturally to you, that you are most comfortable with?
The genre that's most comfortable with is probably the gothic horror type folklore,
Right.
fairy tale sort of stories. A bit liminal, so it's sort of like part in the real world and part in the fantasy world, but close enough to the real world to be possible. A lot tied in with nature, a lot. So folk horror, I suppose, is the niche that I tend to do. The only other novel I've written is horror. And the 2 earlier pieces I have are historic. So they were my first sort of like, when I was trying to get better, they were my first real effort. And I was reading a lot of historical novels. So naturally, I wrote a historical novel. Whether I ever published that, I don't know. I'm not sure that's how people see me as an author.
But is there a particular set of readers or audiences that you keep in mind when you're writing, or you just focus on writing and telling a good tale?
For me, it's definitely the art. I'm not. I don't really. I didn't go into writing to be successful. That sounds ridiculous. I didn't go into writing to be fiscally successful or for money. I wrote the book for the art's sake. So I see myself first as an artist, and then if people like that art, then that's just wonderful. So the audience is probably a little bit literary. I've been told my writing is a bit, by an agent, that my writing is very literary. So from an agent's perspective, they didn't see the value in it because it's not going to necessarily garner lots of money in a mass readership audience. It's a bit too niche, or possibly too niche. Although I think that style of writing is coming back into popularity. So you never know. But for me, it's the art first. I want to make the words sing and paint the picture. I never really expected to publish anything as a self-published author. And after I published a short story and it had been so well received.
Right.
And that's when I decided to release Nightjar. And yeah, it's very much about the literature and the art of it, and the bringing the story to life in people's minds through words rather than playing on a particular regular trope that people are so used to they can just see it automatically.
True. Congratulations on the Nightjar, by the way. I know it's hugely successful, and you self-published it, isn't it? And it is quite a hit, and it's got 5-star rating on Goodreads and on Amazon. I've been looking at that, and it's hugely successful.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. It's gone down really well. I've not sold many copies. But like I said, money isn't the issue. But of the feedback I've had, 50% has been 5 stars. So, you know, I couldn't ask for more. And that's more important to me. I think maybe one day if more people try it, they might enjoy it, and, you know, it'll build its audience naturally rather than necessarily artificially. So, yeah, and by word of mouth, so it's a more honest audience as well, and a more
true,
rather than me selling it, as it were, marketing it.
True, that's true. I think we are writers and not advertisers in that sense, and I think we need to focus more on writing, not on pushing the novel. That's correct. But having said that, it's also good to receive appreciation for what you have written. That's always a plus. It somewhere makes a difference when you get a pat on the back. Pat on the back.
The appreciation.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. I mean, for me, the reviews are everything. In fact, I've been more successful in the reviews than I ever anticipated. I thought I'd get more lower reviews because the writing is quite strange, and people have called it unique and poetic, and I'm trying something a bit different. So I would have expected to have more negative reviews, but fortunately there haven't been any. Because I wouldn't see a negative review as being negative per se, more it's something to learn from. So I'm really happy with the review.
Fair enough.
And from other authors as well.
Right. I was telling you that I'm about 30 pages into Nightjar, and I was completely intrigued. What really caught my attention is very few novels begin with a poem, and I was very intrigued that you started off with a poem, and that's engaging. And the second thing that I noticed is this particular poem that you started off with, it de-glamorizes death. Otherwise, this whole macabre imagery that is associated with death is usually glossed over. Not many writings talk about the dead body and the worms coming in and out of that. It's as graphic as that, and it actually brought a very vivid, slightly disturbing picture to my mind. I had to go to a mortuary a few months back, and it actually brought back those images. So I think that really intrigued me. Would you like to elaborate on that?
What, the graphicness of the writing or the imagery?
Yes.
To be honest, the poem was an old poem. So, I mean, I can't remember. I think it was from 1784, the poem.
Okay.
So I think, which I find interesting. So I've taken the poem to unglamorize death because I want to look at death and the darkness and light of it. But the poem, what I like about looking at the past is it can sometimes inform the future. And when you look at the past and things like that poem, they're quite horrifying, even though we maybe think of the past in quite rose-tinted glasses, but actually in the past they were quite graphic in some of their imagery and some of their poetry, and far more so necessary than today, I think. So I used past works like that poem as inspiration to sort of like help spur me on.
Right. That's really.
So it's not just me who has those sort of writing.
In some way, it reminded me of Poe, Edgar Allan Poe, probably because of the kind of imagery, the kind of style that was there, or yeah. So in some way, it did remind me of Poe.
Oh, yes, I do. I do like. I missed most of the question, but I heard you say Poe. I do like Poe. Yeah, I could see that imagery coming through.
Right, right. In your dedication page, I read that for all those who dream. I think that's lovely, so refreshing. And I just wanted to ask you, what is it that you dream of often?
Oh, you don't want to know my dream. My dreams are very strange. No, my, I mean, to be honest, a lot of my writing are dreams. So I use that dream world to inform my writing. So I think that sort of like explains it. But my dreams are very strange.
Right. Fair enough. And again, Nightjar. I love birds. I'm quite a bit into bird watching. But funnily, I have never spotted a nightjar. Probably it's not in these parts. But I read that it's a bird that is largely endemic to England, especially. So particularly a nightjar? What is it about nightjar that caught your attention?
It's quite an ugly bird in a very beautiful way. It's got a very ugly face and ugly feathers, but it doesn't look like the parts go together. So it's quite monstrous, but it's still beautiful. So I think that's probably where it came from. It's a very strange. It's a very, very strange bird.
Right.
And to be honest, I'd never seen one, because in this part of England they've not been here for 50 years. But after a pair nested just up on the ridge where the book's set, which is a bit strange.
Right. No, I was thinking that maybe you have spotted one, and it is symbolic of something that is eerie or gothic. No.
No, I'd written the character Nightjar in my mind, or had the character Nightjar in my mind, and in my mind he was at once beautiful and ugly and monstrous, and he didn't quite go together properly, and he was fascinating. So having decided that was the sort of, and the Nightjar just popped up coincidentally, or fate, whichever way you think about it.
Right. Fair enough. Fair enough. So, which of your works are you particularly fond of? Something that is really close to your heart?
I mean, I love Nightjar, and I 76 of the odd 93s was a cathartic write for me, and it's a bit too close to the bone and a bit horrifying. But the one that's probably closest to me is Magpie, which is a short story I wrote. But I think that's where I discovered my voice. So in that short story, it's very much leads on to the Nightjar, I suppose.
Okay.
It's a natural progression. And so Magpie is probably one of my favourite pieces.
Wow.
And you usually find a magpie floating around in my book somewhere.
Right. Okay. Okay. That's interesting. Would you like to do a short book reading from Magpie then? Would you like to read from Magpie?
Oh, I don't have it on me. I'm afraid it's in the house. But I could certainly do a reading at another time. But I couldn't do one right now.
Okay, sure. Definitely. I'll look forward to that then. I sure look forward to that. In fact, I was coming to my next question was incidentally about 76 and odd 93. Again, it's the title that's very, very unique. And I did read that it brings in autobiographical elements for you. So besides that, I also read that you do not promote it much. I did not promote this novel as much. Actually, my next question was about your second novel. Actually, although you started writing that first, 76 and 93, and or 93, to be very precise, right? So, and I read that you did not promote the novel as much, and I do know I'm aware that it has autobiographical elements from your life. So would you like to elaborate, talk a little bit about this novel? It says that it was 26 years in the making.
It was. I started it in 1993. So I suppose that might be where part of the title comes from. And 76, I suppose, is a summer that sticks in my mind. It was the summer before I moved to Africa, and it was very hot. So that's where the two settings came from. But it is very autobiographical because it does look at child abuse, the physical, mental, and emotional child abuse. And then I've taken that child abuse, which I experienced. I've only hinted at it in the novel, but I expanded what might be the worst effects of that child abuse. Mm-hmm. So taking the innocence of the child and making from that innocence a monster, but not from what they've done, mm-hmm. from what other people have done to them. So the whole novel, really, what I wanted to create was a conflicted reader. So anyone who read it would, by following, it's got two parts to the story, they would be cheering on the child to achieve what the child wants to do, as monstrous as it is, right. Because of the abuse they've been through, as an adult, and they will hate the adult. So, and they don't want the adult to succeed, and are quite horrified by the adult. So I wanted to create that conflicted emotion in the reader, where the reader is cheering on the main character, but at the same time hating them. And wondering how that can happen, which I think is a lot like child abuse. A lot of it's swept under the carpet and put away, and it's whereas when it's actually faced, it's quite a difficult topic. So I wanted to create that sort of difficultness within the person reading the novel. To be honest, I've not pushed it at all. I've only sold 6 copies, I think, 7 copies. So what's happened is people who've read Nightjar are putting them wanting to read 76 and the odd 93. So only people who've read Nightjar are reading 76 and the odd 93. No one else, because I don't sell it to anyone else. And all of them are giving it 5 stars. I think they've all been 5-star reviews. So, which is quite something really to have. I think pretty much everyone's reviewed it and everyone's given it 5 stars. Even though I personally find the novel too close to the bone for me. So,
right.
Yeah.
No, I understand.
But yeah, it's
right. What are you working on presently, Paul?
Well, there were 2 pieces. I've gone on to another novel after Nightjar set in the same world, and I've put that on the shelf because I think it's gone too far into fantasy, I'd already mentioned. And we've just had our second lockdown in England. Mm-hmm. So it's been a month, and I've written 17,500 words,
Oh,
between 20 and 30,000, maybe up to 40,000 words. It might touch novel length. But what I'm exploring is why the world of Nightjar is as it is. So what happened to create the end of the world, so to speak,
right.
that Nightjar hints at. So I've looked at the end of the world and how it ended through one little boy's eyes, and how he was saved. But at the same time, it's being driven by using medieval drawings and manuscripts.
Mm-hmm.
So as I'm progressing through the story, I have this inkling of an idea, and then I will look up at a medieval drawing to see if there's a medieval drawing or artwork that ties into that idea, and then I'll write the story from the medieval image, based on the medieval image. And if I can find a medieval image, then that'll be the story. If it's not there, then it won't happen. So it's quite an interesting thing. And I'm also being very, very harsh with the number of words I'm using. So I'm being very ruthless in the edit, so it's very short. So I was saying to my wife yesterday, I can't believe I've told so much in only 17,000 words. And they're all snippets that'll, what I want to happen is, I've done it by chapters and verses.
Uh-huh.
So very much like Shakespeare might have done, or an old work. So you have chapter 7 is called Death, for instance. It's not, but let's pretend. So I have chapter 7, verse 1, and then chapter 7, verse 2, chapter 7, verse 3. Each verse is only maybe 100 to 500 words long.
Okay.
So very, very short and quite broad brushstrokes. So it creates a broad image in the reader's mind, and then the reader can expand that image and see it for themselves with the help of the image that I've used to spur it on. So, yeah, and I'm really enjoying it.
It sounds very fascinating. I can't wait to read it. But when do you hope to finish it?
I'd hope to finish it before the end of the year. Maybe February.
Okay.
And then I'd have to look at publishing it. But I might look at agents first and send it to some agents, because it is quite strange, and see if they'd be interested. But I'm not really that bothered about pursuing the agent route. I'll just do it as a feeler, get a couple of opinions back, and that'll make my mind up, because I'd rather have people read it than not. And I could spend 3 years chasing an agent and going through all of the role, or I could just put it out there and let people read it.
That's true. This seems to be a perennial problem.
And I know, I think
I was discussing with Brian, and even Wendy said the same thing. Wendy Waters, she too said the same thing. God knows, it seems to be like a draw of lots. Well, what these agents are after, one never gets to know. And I don't think they're really good at spotting good talent.
I agree. Stopped again, so I'm hoping you finished the question. I agree completely. I've had agents tell me my writing is too literary, which is like, well, I don't get that. That's, how can you be too literary? That's surely that's the art of it. And one had the agent in question. It was a meeting I had with them, and they said, you can really write. So your writing's amazing, but I'm not sure I could sell it.
Right.
So they're looking for this sort of like, they're looking for a set formula.
True.
Which, to be honest, which I think kills the art of it.
It's true.
You're just making everyone write the same thing, and
Exactly.
That's not the art.
Exactly.
I think, if you look at artists of the past, like someone like Van Gogh didn't sell any work in his own lifetime, yet he was probably one of the greatest artists of his generation.
True.
So there's a disconnect between and what art is, I think.
Yeah, probably. That's true. I sometimes I wonder if they would have agreed to publish Shakespeare if he was there during our time, or Oscar Wilde for that matter. I really don't know whether they'd be able to manage agents.
Oh, I could imagine. Yeah, I agree completely. They turned Daphne du Maurier down, I'm sure. You know, it's nuts. It really is. I think the market's become controlled by a commercial expectation rather than as an artistic endeavor. And that's kind of sad. But saying it's sad, indie publishing's allowing authors to say, oh, well, I'm not going to bother with the commercial side of it, and I'm just going to put my art out there, which is good and bad, because it's good because people can connect with your work. But I think also people say there's also a lot of very bad authors. So you've got this huge slush pile of self-published work, people call it. And you're part of that huge pile of slush, and you have to hope people find the gems in it, which is more luck than judgment, I think.
Correct. Yeah, that could be said of the traditional publishing too. Not all the books that find their way into mainstream are good either. The argument works both ways, actually.
No, I've read some of them. It does, absolutely. And I've read some mainstream books that I just think, wow, why? Just because the writing's terrible, the story's terrible.
True.
You know, the only thing that it's got going for it is it's falling into a popular category at the point it's published, which is not really the reason.
True.
So I think publishing needs to look at itself quite strongly, to look at how they change and that.
True. I really wonder when it will change, or if it will change. Hopefully it does.
Yeah, I guess if they're making money out of it, they're not going to want it to change. So, you know,
Right.
we'll see.
Right.
Yeah.
Having said that, who are your favorite writers? Any personal favorites in terms of books, authors?
My favourite book is Lord of the Rings and Tolkien, only because as a child I used Tolkien to escape the abuse I was going through, so that gave me a world to flee into. But I've got a host of writers I love. I mean, du Maurier I love reading her work. She's got a very strange voice, but she was also very much ahead of her time. Definitely, Hobbit, Lord of the Rings, they helped me escape an abusive childhood. So it was a fantasy world I was able to escape into and see and visualize. But authors like du Maurier, Poe, Roald Dahl, they've all got a bit of a strange twist to their writing. I also like historical fiction, so people like Bernard Cornwell and Con Eagledon, and Amanda Scott. But I also like contemporary novels as well, like Song of Achilles and Jean Toulet's A Poisoning Angel and others. So I like a wide range of books and authors, and they've all, I think, the more you read, it all just feeds into you as an author as well and lends to your voice.
Absolutely. And that's an entire range across time periods and across genres. Are you a voracious reader? How often do you read?
I don't read much anymore because when I got ill, my brain now gets tired very quickly. So for me, it's a choice of either read or write, and I choose to write. So I think I've read lots of books in my past, and now I'll tell a few stories. I do read. I'm reading Lord of the Rings at the moment, but it's taken me a year to get to book 4. so I'm not going very quickly. And once I finish that, I intend to read some indie authors who've supported me. So, but it might take a long time. Although saying that, I have read a few indie authors who I've enjoyed.
Right.
So,
Yeah, and as we've been talking, I think some of them are really brilliant. I find Wendy Waters' book absolutely unpardonable. Fields of Grace. Likewise, I loved the package.
yeah, good. Yeah.
Right. So, who's your? You mentioned your wife a couple of times. Is she your best reader and your best critic, your editor? No.
No, my wife, she's a voracious reader. She reads every night, all the time. She eats books, but she's never read any of my work. So no, she doesn't. She thinks I'm too weird.
So who helps edit your work? Do you do that completely by yourself, or do you have do you
Stopped
like
again.
editing? Do you like editing?
No, I don't like editing, and I do. It's one of those. It's a dark art. Um, I like telling the story first, and I edit as I go, because the way I figure it is, if I can edit as much as possible as I go, I won't have to do much editing at the end. But it never works out that way. You still have to edit it at the end and do it 2 or 3 times, 4 times, and catch the little mistakes. And I've tried to change my thinking about editing, so that rather than seeing it as an onerous task where I'm just polishing something, it's actually where I'm almost, I suppose, as an artist might do, a sculptor, just sculpting the little perfect pieces and getting the lines of the dress flowing quite right. And so I try to see it as that way, that I'm refining the work rather than just polishing it, as it were. So I'm actually working on it, and that helps. But I do find editing difficult. I think a lot of authors do find editing difficult because it's not as exciting. You know, when you're first writing the story, you don't know the story, so the story's exciting to you. But then once you've read the story 3 or 4 appeal, because you think, not necessarily because the story is wrong, but you start doubting your own judgment.
True, that does happen. Yeah, that does happen. As you were saying about your novel 76 and the odd 93. In fact, I think I have hope. I've been sitting on my novel, which I hope will be my debut novel, for 5 years now. It's been 5 years in the making, and I'm nowhere close to finishing it. But that's because I'm not a full-time writer, unfortunately. I want to take that route at the earliest, but I have a day job, so it gives you very little time to write.
Yeah, and
Right,
editing takes a long time, you know.
right.
But yeah, I've done it all myself, and I think I'd have to with mine because I make words up. So in my work there are strange spellings which are meant to be there, some which aren't. So I think if a normal editor just looked at it, they'd say, "Oh, this is wrong," and also using the poetic license as well.
Fair enough.
Um, they'd say, you know, structurally, as an English teacher, this is wrong, but as an artist, it works, and as a reader, it works. So I'm more interested in the latter than the former.
Absolutely,
So
absolutely.
long as it works for the reader and the art, then that's all right.
No, fair enough. All the more reason then you have to be your own editor, because the other person might not really get that, and especially if you're coining your own
Yeah,
phrase. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, Paul, would you like?
absolutely. I read a really interesting thing about Tolkien.
Right.
When they edited Tolkien's work, he was furious because they edited all the magic out. They edited because he misspells words,
Right.
and So, like Gollum, his speech is all wrong and all over the place. So they edited it out, and it was like, no, that's how it's meant to be. It's meant to be strange. So, yeah, apparently Tolkien was furious when he first got his edit back on Lord of the Rings. He made them edit it again.
So, Paul, would you like to do a book reading for us? Maybe from the Nightjar? You have it by you?
I do, but I do, although the light's quite dark.
Your favorite section?
Oh, I don't read it. I've never read it. Well, I have, but only as an editor. Oh, you sure you want me to do a reading?
Please, please, that would be lovely.
I can just read the beginning if that's all right.
Oh, yeah, sure, certainly.
Would that be okay?
Certainly, that would be great.
I won't choose a favourite bit. No one knows where Nightjar comes from. He just is. There on the green sand ridge, tall and crooked, bent, ugly, and angular in a beautiful way. He sits quiet, still in the old oak atop a hill, as overlooks the shallow sea. The hill is Caesar's hill. There are some who say Nightjar is born of the rock beneath, others that tell he is of the tree and wood, a primal beast who haunts green shadows. Either way, he sits a seat and watches over the remains of a town that was sandy. It was called that of old. Now all that remains is a tower, rooftops and rotted timber, sunken walls and the half-submerged carcass of lives once lived. Dark it climbs out of cold water and salt marsh, where strange lights flicker. Will-o'-the-wisps play. Dance there and tell of secret ways, hidden treasures. Men see them, hear and follow, drown. But not Nightjar, he sings. Ways, hidden treasures. Men see them, hear and follow, drown. But not Nightjar, he sings. A haunting song that echoes out over the sea that drowns a fertile land. Notes that float to a rising tide. From out to the east the waters did come, hungry to the clanged valleys and rolling plains of old England. Now they lap at the shores of the green sand ridge. His song tells of happier times, when children lived, played in warming sun, and in the wind and the rain. Then did people laugh and drink of wine, eat their fill, and spend days in idle flippance. There was a time when fear lived far away across a distant sea, but it did not last. Waters rose and the sea did come, holding hands with disease and death. Nightjar remembers. He sings of it.
Oh,
Is that okay?
thank you for that. That was brilliant. It actually draws you in. I was reading this yesterday. It sounds brilliant when you read it.
Oh, thank you.
Right.
I've never read it before. I've never read it out loud like that to anyone before. So thank you for listening.
No, it is completely my pleasure. So, any special message for the viewers of the Writer Talks?
For writers, for readers, keep reading, and writers too, read as much as you can. But for writers, for people who want to write, is do it for yourself, and enjoy it, the art of it. Don't worry what other people say, because that's just an opinion, and the art belongs to you. So there's no right, there's no wrong. All you have to do is start writing it and finish it, and that's it really.
Absolutely.
That would be my advice. Definitely start, definitely finish, and be true to yourself, and the art of it. And people will love it. It's just, if you're true to yourself in the art of it, you'll find people will enjoy it more because it's more from your soul. They become a part of the art. It's in their imagination, not yours. So it's quite a unique gift, and something to enjoy.
That's true. Absolutely. If you tell a tale with conviction from your heart, something that's very close to you, I think it will be able to resonate with the others. Right. Thank
Yes,
you for
I
that.
think so.
Thank you.
And it's a lovely feeling when somebody else reads your work and really takes something from it. It's very hard to describe. It's quite an honour. I suppose is the word.
True.
So do it.
Yeah, that's really rewarding when you come across a reader who walks up to you and tells you that yes, I read this particular page, or I came across this particular character and I loved it. You're right. It's an indescribable emotion. You're really elated with that.
Mm,
It's true.
lovely.
That's true. Thank you so much for this, Paul. I really enjoyed talking to you, and I look forward to having you very, very soon. So, Feb, you said your next novel is coming. Do we know the title? Would you reveal what the title is?
I don't know what the title is, but I've got a working title.
Right.
Can you guess? Do you think you could guess? It's called Maggot.
Ah, okay. It's called Maggot.
Yeah.
All right.
I'll leave that, so straight away it's got that imagery maybe of the poem at the beginning of Nightjar,
Right.
and the worm.
So yeah,
But
yeah.
I yeah,
Okay, all right, interesting. So
and that's
we'll be back for Maggot then.
I'm not sure whether it'll be called Maggot, but at the moment that's its working title because that's the main character, and I call him Maggot, and it's become an endearing term. Even though I hate the sight of maggots, but he's quite a nice maggot, I think.
Right.
Not that he is a maggot. But we never in it I don't know what his name is, so that's his nickname, and that's the only name I know him by.
Okay. That's
So,
that.
yeah.
That's really interesting. All right. Ahoy. Thank you for that, Paul.
Ahoy! Thank you very much for having me. It's been lovely, and sorry if but thank you, and good luck with everything. Good luck with the writing, and good luck with talk.
Thank you so much, Paul. Thank you.